What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Kramzer here coming at you with a deep dive week. Today, we are talking about 2003. It's been 20 years, celebrating the anniversary. If you're new to the channel, basically what the deep dives are all about is back when we started the channel, we did this Albums of the Year series where we each went through and gave our top 5 albums of each year from 65 to 2021 or 22 or whenever we finished that up. And we found 5 selections to be quite limiting. It didn't allow us to talk about everything we want to talk about. And plus, we wanted to, dig into the years a little further, explore genres that we're less familiar with, see if we can dig up any new favorites. So that's what this is. This is an expanded list, top 25 each, separate videos for each of us. Today is going to be Cram. The floor is his, and he's going to roll through 5 at a time, and then Joe and I will chime in from time to time.
All right, let's start with an overture of 2003. This was a video I've been itching to do. I really want to get into newer stuff. I'm tired of everyone requesting, why haven't you done sticks yet? Why haven't you done this yet? I'm so sick of the 60s and 70s. Like, let's move on. That said, I found this year to be a little bit underwhelming with greatness. It's kind of the year of very goodness for me. I mean, I have more 3.5-star albums this year than like any other year. And that said, this year is kind of cramcore light. It's a lot of the bands that I love, that you know me as a viewer that I love, but it's not necessarily their best albums. Like, very few bands this year, I feel like, came out with their masterpiece. So there's going to be a lot of familiar names, a lot of very good reviews. Nothing below 3.5 stars, but it takes a while to get in that 4-star territory. And we're going to start with number 25. I've got The National with Sad Songs for Dirty Lovers, which is like maybe my 6th or 7th favorite National album. Love The National. This one just slips in. Compared to the debut, they're really starting to round out their sound a little bit more. Very lyrically driven. He's a master of lyrics. I don't think this is their best lyrical album. And it's not even like he's forcing everything. Like, he's always a little bit forced and a little bit pretentious with the way he does his lyrics. They're just not quite as sharp, and they don't indicate him as a voice just as much yet. Like, you feel like he's borrowing a lot of stuff. But the album is bouncy, fuller. It has like that Americana art culture somberness. It's got a lot of really good songs. It's very spontaneous at times. I do think, as we've talked about a lot in the National video, the drumming is a big strength. It's a strength on this album, but like I said, it will only get better with their other stuff. There's a lot of really good songs. There are some dubs like Sugar Wife. So it's a really good effort. It's a good indication of what the National will become, and it just slips into my top 25. Now, 24, here's the outlier of my entire list. While everything else is a name I've talked about pretty much a lot on the channel before, here's a group that we've hardly ever touched on. It's a legacy act. It makes no sense that I like this album as much as I do, but I've got Want That Life by The Fix. And primarily an 80s band. I love their 80s stuff. And I don't really know anything else outside of that 80s kind of catalog. This I'd never heard before. I listened to it for this exercise, and it was kind of a surprise to me. I really enjoyed it. It's really fun. It's really quirky. It's really groovy. You get a lot of R&B and kind of romantic soul thrusted in there. It's a very weird hybrid of all of that and kind of like that 80s dance revivalness. They don't fall into the trap here of giving into that terrible early 2000s production sounds that most legacy acts did at this time, and they're not doing a heavier sound. They're just doing their own thing, and it's really kind of goofy. They're 20 years older than they were in their heyday in the 80s, and they're kind of embracing that middle-aged, just like almost like goofy dad rock, but we're good musicians kind of deal. And it completely owns the adult alternative perspective of things, not in sound, but in nature and attitude. There's some smoothness to it. It's all pretty smooth, actually, but straight up like smooth jams, like Are You Satisfied has this cool kind of suave Bowie-esqueness. It's a nice mashup of a lot of things I said. And the best thing that's going for it is it doesn't take itself too seriously. Straight Around the Bend is a really cool tune. It's got like this relaxed funk on it. It's a very superficial, plastic, tacky, corny album, but all in a good way. Number 23, back to Cramcore. I've got Camera Obscura with Underachievers Please Try Harder, which is probably my favorite album title of the year. I love it. like I said, they have better stuff than this, and but it's kind of a really good jumping point. It's kind of the year of albums that are jumping points for bands that I love. And this is, just exactly what you want from Camera Obscura, the vocal duo of Tracy and Campbell and Henderson, just really beautifully done folk pop with some jangliness. Not too unlike what Bell and Sebastian and some other acts are doing around this time. Yola Tango kind of falls into that a little bit. Um, Beautiful fluttering guitar work, very underrated guitar on this album and in their catalog. There's a serenity and beauty to it. They have a cool kind of mystique of their own Americana vision. There's some really good brass and horns. I just truthfully love the sound of this record and the songwriting and the delicate reverb vocal, like kind of harmonies. It's not over the top harmonies, but it's really delicate. Just gorgeous, sunny, simple indie folk, really good storytelling, peaceful allegories and insights to love and thought. You get kind of cool 50s-esque tunes with Sister Social Agony and Before You Cry. I've been in Chicago way too long. I just said agony. Um, yeah, they will come into their own best stuff later, but this is a great start for them. All right, I've got Shout Out Louds with How How Gaff Gaff, their debut. Took me a while to get into this band when they came out, but going back after enjoying their later stuff, really cool. It's indie pop. It's very much of the time. Pretty much my list is indie pop and post rock. The Comeback, really good opener for them. Little bit of synth here with some straight up indie rockers. The album's simple. It's just got a youthful point of view on like hope, family, simple decisions along the way. Nothing profound, but really good lighthearted journey through like this simple suburban aesthetic. Somewhat lost in like a sense of purpose. It has a lot of energy and a lot of dynamic. The sound, even though it kind of blends in with what everyone else is doing, I think they're better songwriters than most. Their compositions are really good. Everything kind of has a nice ride to it. It's pretty easy listening, early 2000s indie rock, early 30s cool person music. Like a song like A Track and Train is just like a good, simple lifestyle soft rocker. Number 21, yet another artist with an album that's very good and not their best stuff. Sorry to beat a dead horse, but this is the theme of 2003 for me. I've got M83 with Dead Cities, Red Seas, and Lost Ghosts. Just a really powerhouse synth album. Kind of calms down on the albums after this. The song Unrecorded is just a badass heavy synth song that just, the album comes at you so hard, and it feels like later M83 settles into the more dreamy Daisy stuff. But this is almost just like a rock album, really at its soul, using keys and synths to punch you in the mouth. There is some good live drumming, which really helps round out that vibe. Still a very ghostly album. It's quite epic, but it's also very apocalyptic, like, and cavernous in its loneliness. And I think if you listen to this album, you can kind of get, obviously M83 illustrates this later, but they're very underappreciated for being part of something that shapes music for the last 20 years. And you hear it everywhere now. Like you put on a show or something like Stranger Things and you get that big like synth score behind it. You can get just like that M83 influence creeping in, and just a lot of really good songs and big soundscapes and tremendous production like every M83 album. So those are my first five. Read it and weep, boys.
I'm weeping all right. Pretty standard cram core, correct. Other than the fix, I don't know where the hell that came from. I listened to the National. I didn't even bother with Camera Obscura, the Shout Out Louds. I didn't even do M83, who I like, but I don't know. I just didn't listen to it, so I don't know. I can't tell you if you're right or wrong on any of this.
I like all of those bands, and I heard 4 of those albums, and none of them will be making my list. I don't know what order the videos are dropping, so maybe people already know that, but we are recording this one first. I don't really have a big problem with any of those making your list. M83, I was probably the one I was the lightest on. I think I only have that at like 2.5 or something, but everything else I like. Yeah. Keep it going. Joe's horrified at the thought of 20 more indie pop and post-rock albums.
Well, the stuff that I would imagine is going to make Joe's list, I also kind of like. Like, just missing was that AFI album that came out, and some other hip-hop albums that I kind of like from '03. I do have a hip-hop album coming later, but I don't believe in this group of 5. But get ready for your ears to bleed, Joe. Number 20 is the most pretentious and the most hateable Animal Collective album there is. Here Comes the Indian, or now called Arc, and they're renaming. It is the least melodic, the least structured, well, maybe the rawest, but to me, it's just this awesome, weird psychedelic journey full of whirlwind, percussion, and twisting craziness that swirls around everywhere. Then all of a sudden, there'll just be like this calmness, this static. It's just like this manic, lunatic fringe of carnies. I literally have written down this is an album not for Joe, which is why it succeeds. The melodies, like I said, aren't there yet, but they will be on their next release. But the craziness is intoxicating and like has that band going nuts feel that I love. They just do this messy, beautiful, rambling stream of thought thing so well. Number 19, I've got Mogwai with Happy Songs for Happy People. Kind of dismissed among the Mogwai fandom for having their, Dylan Gone Electric moment before this a little bit, but they're kind of getting more into synths and stuff and soundscapes, and everyone hated that. But I don't really see it here. It's barely there. The guitar and drums are still doing the heavy lifting. Post rock, early 2000s sound. I'm a sucker for it. It's very dramatic and relaxing and exhilarating and mostly hypnotic. It just helps me escape, which is a big thing for me. How I like almost physically connect with music. Like I can put this on and easily miss a subway stop if I'm on a train. Honestly, too, the synths and synthetic strings, like in the song Moses, I Amped, are really good and I think enhance the band greatly. It's mostly a drowsy and dreary album, but has a lot of tunefulness and some really underrated bass lines and bass work. And there's some really good dramatic, uplifting, rocking parts too, like that build up in the song Killing All Flies. Number 18, an album that has grown for me from 3 stars to 3.5. I've got Reality by David Bowie. I think this is a really good rock record that doesn't really sound like any other rock records of this era because it's David Bowie, who's incredibly unique, and it has a cool blend of everything that he's done since and kind of finding his footing, but it's really interesting. New Killer Star, one of the best songs of the year. That song rules. There's some cool covers on it. It's really rocking, and it just has this really good album feel. There's a warm vibrantness to it. Everything's kind of unexpected. I love the harmonica and She'll Drive the Big Car. Kind of embracing like more lo-fi indie guitar sounds like in Fall Dog Bombs, The Moon. Yeah, it's a really good album, and Bowie just has that presence on it that very few frontmen at the time do. Number 17, an album that in the early stages of our channel might seem like I wasn't too high on because it came in last place in their catalog, but I've got The Shins with Shoots Too Narrow. There's no denying that it's a really good indie pop record. It's bouncy folk pop, which isn't too odd for 2003, but this one has kind of like this 60s Burt Bacharach lounginess to it. Mercer comes to the forefront here as the band leader, very much so compared to the debut. I think it almost plays like a solo album with the Shins in the background. But everything you want from the Shins is here. It's tight, it's cleverly arranged, it's cute, the lyrics are terrific, and his rhyme and meter are just amazing. There's nothing really bad. Everything's really good. It just doesn't have my most favorite Shins album, and I think it's a little bit, well, now I'm comparing it to other Shins album. That's not the point of this. It's a really good album. It's got great acoustic flow, and the songs speak for themselves. It's very ambivalent and cynical, yet has a lot to say. And then an album that I'm not sure I really liked too much when it came out, probably because I was douchier then than I was now, and everyone loved it, believe it or not. But I've got Give Up by the Postal Service. Yeah, it's grown on me a good bit. And honestly, I think a lot of part of that has a lot to do with just nostalgia. And it reminds me of such a specific time in my life and just this period of music in general. And that's kind of the beauty of music. It can help you time travel so much. But you get tracks like District Sleeps Alone Tonight, opens with that cool digital like funeral home organ sound that really just hits that 2003 button. Ben Gibbard coming in with those high-pitched, angelic, smooth sensations are perfectly grounded against this digitized world of the music. And honestly, just really catchy parts, kind of doing like Pretty Boy Coffee House Radiohead stuff, like if Amnesiac was like glitter hair metal for coffee shops or something like that. It's very cool. Such Great Heights is still a banger to this day, so much that Owl City would pretty much just try to recreate it like 6 years later. It's a serious bleeps and bloops album for Joe to poke his eyes out with, but it is very pop oriented with the construction of those little jams. And the album has some cool teenage groove to it, easily, dancing to this in the basement of your friend's iPod party of the time. And you get like a song like Sleeping In. I used to think was really annoying and down, but now maybe there's might be a genius to it of just repeating the chorus for like 2.5 minutes. I think the songs are, pretty good. The lousy songs aren't that great, but overall it's an album about album feel for me, and it strikes a chord.
That's fine. That's a good list there. I hate the Postal Service. I think they're just the worst. Don't like Ben Gibbard at all. And somehow he becomes even more annoying in that outfit. But you do have David Bowie. You got the Shins, even though it's ridiculous to say it's a 3.5 star album. So that's good. It, cancels out the Animal Collective, the Mogwais, which I did not listen to.
Yeah, before we rolled camera, Cram and I were talking about how our lists have some things where I kind of expected that I wouldn't be that into them anymore, and then expected them to have grown off of me. And then going back to them, I realized, no, actually, I still really like this. The Postal Service was not one of those. That is a record that I do not think has aged very well. Pissed him off.
He heard the Postal Service and he freaked out.
Well, literally, my Postal Service is walking through the yard right now and delivering mail. That's why Gino's losing it. He's not a big fan of. He's more of a death cab dog. You cool, buddy? All right. Anyway, no, Give Up had that opposite effect on me. I liked a lot more than I did. All right, 15 through 11. Here's one. I've got an EP. I don't care. It's an album. I don't care. I got the Arcade Fire EP debut, which is really like a big stepping stone to Funeral. The better songs are on Funeral, but the sound and kind of the feel is here. This is my last album at 3.5 stars. Everything will be 4 stars and up after this. And it's really their beginning. You get everything you want, everything that's going to happen with Arcade Fire. You get the Baroque element, you get the accordion right off the bat with that energized indie rocker Old Flame. The production, like I said, is very similar to Funeral, maybe slightly less dramatic and anthemic, but the songs are really good. And it still has that U2 in a basement kind of feel. You get an original version of No Cards Go, which will show up on Neon Bible. It's got a bit more of a rustic and fairy tale kind of feel almost compared to their other stuff. And I think they would get a little bit harder and edgier after this album. It's a little bit more lighthearted and cute rather than that heavy-handed melodrama of their usual stuff. But you get like beautiful track like My Heart is an Apple, just like this quiet storm of a song, really shows you what they're capable as writers. And yeah, a really great root in the Arcade Fire tree of music. Up to 4 stars for number 14. Going hip hop, I've got Atmosphere with Seven's Travels. Now, I'm going to breeze through this really quick because reviewing hip hop isn't really my strong point, especially if it's not like early 90s stuff. But it's kind of what I like about this album a lot. They aren't really doing stuff that's very 2003 oriented. A lot of their beats and little like guitar parts and stuff are closer to like Massive Attack style trip hop and early 90s kind of hip hop. I like all the samples. Like I said, there's some really cool guitar work on here. It's just a really tight, groovy album. The rapping itself packs the right amount of punch for me. It's not too crazy. And just like the beats are really tight, really old school. Birds Sing Why the Cage I Know is one of my favorite hip hop songs of all time, and I found it on this album. And Reflections is a really fun upbeat romper. So start to finish, this is a hip hop album that I really, really love. 13. I expect this to be on Jason's list. I've got From Every Sphere by Ed Harcourt. I don't really know how to distinguish this album from a lot of his other stuff. I just friggin' love the sound of his voice. He's got this raspy, loungy jazziness. He almost has like a lispiness to everything. That combined with his piano and kind of just his style of being like this kind of like more sexy, mainstream Tom Waitsy kind of guy is really cool. Ton of piano on here. The atmosphere and backing band with a modern twist and a lot of energy is a really cool dynamic. The songs are kind of this sort of like sunny, melancholy, bittersweetness. He's such an old soul. Like I think he's 26 when this album comes out, but he sings songs like his life is just over. Like he's got terrified of missing out and feeling like life's flying by and there's nothing left. And that's how I feel all his stuff is. And sonically, they're piano rockers with big horns and some spacey trip out coloring. A lot of I always hear a lot of U2 and his big anthemic sound that's all kind of just falling down onto his piano. It's very cool. But yeah, just that the dude's a really good songwriter. Songs are really good. And just his voice is just fantastic. Number 12, I've got The Thrills with So Much for the City. And I really just realized they got this and they got Let's Bottle Bohemia that comes out a year or two after this. And then they got another one. And what the hell happened to these guys? They're really good band. Such high hopes. I like this album a lot. It's a sunny, fun, Irish-infused, jaunty indie pop record with great, clever little pieces of pop gems. The Do-Do-Do's and Big Sur and that Monkeys Call Out, so good. That's a great song. Just an album without a lot of frills and flair and lights, but just really warm and pleasant, really clever. It's one of those albums that's like a great day starter. You put it on and it's not too enthusiastically positive and uplifting, but it's unbelievably realistic and it's very cool. There's a lot of realism to it. Piano and drum driven, underrated backing vocals. And the thing that brings it all together is this aching luminous to Connor Deasy's vocals that you got kind of this fun, jaunty, almost Supergrass band behind him, but he sings this painfully pleasant way. It's really cool. Just a really fun album with poignant down touches. And then just missing my top 10. I really wanted to get this in because I love this band since we did their discography. Got Massive Attack with 100th Window. Bright sci-fi tech kind of sound, not as monstrously gloom as their old stuff. It's a very busy electronica album. It's very tight, very cluttered. It has this cool static stillness. It's got that epicness and very haunting, really cool vibes. Very cinematic. There's some Middle Eastern influence on it. Butterfly Caught, really great song. It's very eerie. There's a sexiness to this album, kind of mysticism. The bass is amazing, trancy. Name Taken is an amazing song. Yeah, I mean, everything you want here from Massive Attack is on this album. They're a great band, and this one just misses for me.
You got a couple in that group that I love and will appear on my list. Going with an EP, people will be perhaps upset about that, but I think for the deep dives, we kind of make our own rules and talk about whatever we want.
Thrills, I know it was highly regarded back in 2003, and I hadn't listened to it until last week, but need a couple more listens for that one. Massive Attack, that is not a very good Massive Attack album. I like Massive Attack more than I thought, but that's definitely their worst one. And getting 4 stars all the way to number 11, that's a little high. That's a little much for me.
Well, we know you haven't had 40 years of everyone else telling you what's good, so you have no clue about 03. Sorry, that was harsh. You can like whatever you want from 03. Can't wait to hear about Blink 182 and Kanye. All right. Number 10. I got Cat Power, You Are Free, 4 stars. Love her style on here. So personal, but deflective as well. She does that keep you at a distance, but give me the attention I want to, caginess so well in her presence. Very haunting. Moon Picks from 98 put her on the map. And I think this one is kind of that album that says, I'm here to stay. I think The Greatest, which comes out a couple years after this, is probably her best. And this kind of gets lost in the shuffle. It's in between, but man, it's really dense, really rich, really emotional. Her sound is quiet and mild nature for the most part, but she's just dropping with her lyrics, in her presence, these emotional bombs, like a shovel hitting you in the head, makes for a really cool dynamic. Some amazing fiddle on this album, good piano, obviously. I Don't Blame You is great. When you get a spicy song like Free, some Americana vibes with Good Woman was a great song. And, stylistically, she's spreading her wings. Werewolf is a song she's greatly known for, and it's a great example of how her vocals just have that great kind of layering. She's like the female Bon Iver kind of sound with that, where it's just like very woodsy and haunting. So captivating. Number 9, 4 stars. I've got The Earth Is Not a Cold, Dead Place by Explosions in the Sky. Post-rock champions here, long, picturesque, vivid rockers that could score a rocket launch. So much emotion in the composition and the playing. A nice thin tubey sound to the guitars, which I love. Christopher Rasky on drums, absolutely brilliant, especially in the chaos he brings in the song First Breath After the Coma, one of my favorite songs of the year. And they do this totally engulfed soundscape, like where you're just completely immersed without much technical help at all. I mean, they reverb stuff and they get that gated sound a little bit, but no keys, no synthscapes, none of that, just like rhythmic hum behind. It's just all guitars, drums, bass, and just this vast like texture without all that. Totally lyricless album, and just incredibly beautiful compositions that, you know, it's not boring where it's just like, you know, a band that just does somber stuff for 7 minutes. You go through like every emotion, just the kaleidoscope of humanity and like these textures and songwriting. It's really cool. Number 8, I've got Dear Catastrophe Waitress by Belle and Sebastian. Another one I think will make Jason's list, maybe Joe's too. And another one that's not my favorite, but it grows on me more and more. You got Trevor Horn producing this one. It's got a much more mainstream pop sound, much bolder, like just getting a lot more bombastic. You get, you know, that sort of Deadhead sort of dance tracks like Stay Loose, showing their growth out of lo-fi indie pop, but still rooted in that 60s Baroque pop sentimentality. Like their whimsical psychedelia, Step Into My Office Baby, which has some great Jerry Garcia guitar flair. Just really good songwriting. You know, there are many albums that have this kind of feel, but I think they do it the best songwriting wise. You know, If She Wants Me, it's probably my favorite on the album. Number 7, I've got Ryan Adams with Rock and Roll. The song Rock and Roll itself is really cool. It's one of the saddest songs I've ever heard. Everyone's cool playing rock and roll. And one of the best use of like found recordings. I believe it's him and Parker Posey when he just like, she left a message on his answering machine where she's just like crying after a breakup or something. And he's just like, I'm going to put this in my fucking song or whatever. Very cool. You get these rockers like So Alive, which is awesome. This Is It, kicking it off. It's just like a really good version of his rock and roll. It's a little bit old school, a little bit, you know, 80s pop with like that Bryan Adams feel, and has Burning Photographs on it, which is just awesome. It's got that delayed guitar sound and, you know, I'm never going to get over you until I burn all your photographs kind of sentiment. Awesome. And I've got the debut at number 6 of Stella Star. Really awesome album. I understand why someone can't get into them because the vocals are kind of weird. He's got this big, thick, like, you know, like almost buffoonery kind of voice to it. But, you know, you get songs like Jenny, and My Coco, which are awesome. Really cool guitar work, really catchy. It's got like an 80s Flock of Seagulls kind of feel to it at times, but a little bit punky, a lot of energy. And, you know, it's just a really cool, playful, cool sounding rock album. No one else really was doing this at the time the way they were. Yeah, I just think from start to finish, it's a really good, fun rock record.
All right. Well, a couple more there in that group that make my list as well. People can probably guess what those will be. Nothing really since The Fix has been that shocking to me as far as making your list. So this is going exactly where I thought. Are we still at 4 stars? Is that where we are? Are we even at 4.5 yet?
That one, or no, we are up to 4.5 at number 9 with
Okay.
Children in the Sky.
So the last 4 were all 4.5. All right, well, that's good.
Yeah, it's decent stuff. A lot of stuff I haven't listened to. I just stopped listening to 03. But I wish I'd listened to Ryan Adams sooner. I did dig that one. It didn't make my list. Thought it tailed off a little at the end. Starts great. Loved a couple openers, but it's another one that I probably need a couple dozen more listens to really figure out where it would land. But yeah, nothing surprising at all. Zero surprise. Absolutely nothing.
All right. Get ready for my top 5, which are all 5 stars. But relax, Joe. Number 5 is one of the best live albums of all time, Rush in Rio by Rush. Absolutely awesome. I could do a whole month's work of rankings and discussing Rush's live albums. I think they're masters at it. This one is a lot different. I think Jason would argue that it's mixed terribly because there's a ton of crowd noise, but that's kind of part of the thing here is like everyone thought Rush was done. Neil Peart was going to quit. It's like the most enthusiastic crowd ever. I mean, they are singing along to YYZ, which is an instrumental. It's so awesome. I also think this is the best set list Rush has ever done. It's just loaded with pretty much all of the hits. They bring back songs like By Tour and Working Man and stuff like that. Killer version of La Via Strangiato. Really amazing version of Bravado with a extended jam session. And yeah, it's everything you could want from a Rush album. Number 4, I've got You Forgot It in People by Broken Social Scene. This one, coming off their recent effort, is more song-oriented. You get just their perfect version of indie rock, which is kind of weird, a little bit experimental, but they do like this experimental kind of sound and shove it into classic song structure at times. There's some instrumental stuff. It's really awesome. You get Anthems for a 17-Year-Old Girl, which is a song they're probably best known for. Very cutesy and what is precious, as Joe likes to say, but that's just really that song. So in a way, they almost do like all of the little versions of indie rock that everyone else is doing on this album. Like they have a version of everything. Like you get Cause Equals Time, which is a little more upbeat. Casey Accidental, very cool. I'm Still Your Fag is awesome. Lover Spit. They're just master songwriters of their time, and I don't think they get enough credit. And like the sound of it is great. You get some horns, you get some more lo-fi stuff, you get a lot of cool drum parts. I just think it's awesome. Number 3, I've got what I think is my favorite Yo La Tengo album, Summer Sun. I know it's not most people's favorite, but I love it. It's very beachy, very summery, as the title would suggest, but it kind of gives them a very cool thematic window to work through. And with that channeling, I think it gives you some of the best stuff. It's very relaxed, very calming. Song like Today Is the Day, you just feel like you're floating on the water. Like these little such good guitar work, like nothing fancy, nothing you can't figure out in 45 seconds to a minute and a half, but just so delicate and so pretty, just painting the perfect picture. Georgia versus Yo La Tengo, really cool, like, rocking kind of tribal sound. How to Make a Baby Elephant Float. Tiny Birds is absolutely beautiful. Little Eyes, just these beautiful little songs that fall somewhere in between, like, mellowed out Serenity and like pop gems. So I've got that at number 3. Number 2, and this almost moved into the number 1 spot, and I think we know what's actually number 1. But I've got It Still Moves by My Morning Jacket, just a powerhouse alt country rocker. The slight downside of this, even though I have a 5 stars and Joe's got my back on this, is almost every one of these songs sounds better on their live album that will come out a few years after this. But I mean, just the track list itself, these are just some of the best songs of this era, in my opinion. You get Megiddo starting off. Dance Floors is this fun, like, bar rocker. Golden is just one of the most beautiful, like, prairie, country-esque songs. Master Plan, One Big Holiday, right in the middle of the album, just giving it that revolt. It sounds like the album's starting over. Awesome. Easy Morning Rebel is this cool, like, old 50s bluesy kind of jam through. And it closes so well for me with Just One Thing and Steam Engine, these beautiful, just like picturesque songs that they do. I don't think he's ever sounded better, Jim James, than he does on this album. It's so hollow, so haunting, so gorgeous. But my number 1 favorite album of 2003 is Hail to the Thief by Radiohead. Very underrated for them. It's guitar heavy. It's very cool that they're unapologetically just putting the songs on the album. Like they don't have like this idea for the album going in, other than it being very politically charged. Like for the sound, they stripped down a lot of the electronic stuff. There's still stuff on there that's very electronic oriented, like Sit Down, Stand Up. But even like Mixomatosis, they're just like rocking that deep bass, going nuts. It's experimental. You get like beautiful, beautiful vocal performances, like Wolf at the Door. Scatterbrain is like just this cool, like hip hop poetry beat behind it. And 2+2=5. I mean, everyone loves that song. It's awesome. It's just got some of their best songs ever. And yeah, I love it. I've talked enough about Radiohead, and we'll redo the Radiohead video soon. We should do it once a year, to be honest. There we go. My favorite album of the year. No one saw coming. Hail to the Thief by Radiohead. Sorry. I am who I am.
I think that is something that you'll really see in the 03 list, is like who each of us are as far as our tastes in music. I think this is really you're gonna have a bunch of stuff that would also appear on our list. Joe, is that what you're saying?
No, it's just none of this is really what I'm all about. It's just I have to pick songs or pick albums from 03. Like I think that list is exactly who Kramzer is, and I'm sure yours is gonna be exactly who you are. But for me, it's just sort of like what I have to do.
I think that's kind of who you are, though.
I don't want to be the person I was in 03, all right? It's forced upon me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would say Jason hit the nail on the head there. Like my top 5 being a live Rush album, Broken Social Scene, Yola Tango, Alt Country with My Morning Jacket, and then Radiohead. Like if you narrowed me down to those 5 albums, it'd be pretty close to like what I'm all about.
What was in your original top 5 in place of the Rush? Because the other 4 were all there, right?
I believe Stella Star slipped in.
It was just Stella Star, so pretty much nothing changing at the top for you.
No, and I'd say the album that kind of fell the most for me was probably Cat Power. I probably had in like the 6-7 spot, and then it fell down to 10.
All right. Well, let Cram know what you think of his list. Drop it down in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe. Check us out on all of the social media channels. You can find links for those in the video description, as well as Patreon and merch. And yeah, thanks for watching. Keep your eye on the channel. Our other lists will be coming up later this week. See you then.